What's up, guys? Carolina Jackpot coming at you. It's Wednesday, also means April 12th, 2023. I wanted to get into the South Carolina Gamecocks 2023 schedule and just take a look at it, a little overview of the opponents, where the games are, where they fall, trap games, that kind of stuff. I did one of these a few weeks ago on Clemson. I plan on doing a few more. This is in no way, shape, or form a season preview video with the wins and losses and going over the offense, defense, special teams, coaches, all that. That'll come later on. In fact, last year, I actually dropped it on August the 14th of 2022. So that tells you how late in the year, how close to the season that video actually comes for Carolina Jackpot. I want to know pretty much what our depth chart looks like, and I also want to have in hand my Phil Steele magazine. And anybody on YouTube who's trying to do college football season preview videos without a Phil Steele magazine in hand, unless you just have some kind of innate working knowledge of how things are in the program, then you're doing yourself a disservice. You should get that magazine. It comes out around July the 4th, maybe a week or so after that. Really good, informative, just breaks down everything for you. So I like to really go over that well too. But just looking at the schedule for South Carolina in 2023, and it's a tough schedule. You know, we hear that every year. My God, it's a tough schedule. And it is. You know, and we need to really just stop hearing it. I mean, it's going to be a tough schedule every year. And with Texas and Oklahoma, two programs who are above average and, in my opinion, have not reached their full potential, things are definitely going to get cranked up a little bit in the SEC. Every year, South Carolina is going to play Georgia. Now, that may change going into 2024. Everything's going to be kind of topsy-turvy with the SEC West, SEC East. Those are dissipating. Hopefully, South Carolina plays Georgia every year. That's a rivalry. As much as the Georgia fans don't want to say it's a rivalry because they have no respect for South Carolina, it's a rivalry. I understand why they don't, just judged on, the outcomes of the games over the years and the records. But the fact of the matter is, South Carolina and Georgia have played every year since the mid-'70s, save 1990 and 1991. There was a 2-year hiatus in that series. When South Carolina was an independent, they played Georgia every year. And then, of course, since coming to the SEC, South Carolina has played Georgia every year as well as part of the SEC East. That game hopefully will not go away. But the schedule is always going to be tough. You got Clemson at the end of the year, every year. Whether you like them, whether you don't like them, they're going to be a top 10 team. Barring just some crazy circumstances, they're going to be that. So, that's not going to change. But looking at this schedule for 2023, South Carolina is going to start off in Charlotte, taking on North Carolina. Neutral site game. This is our home away from home in Bank of America Stadium. Duke's Mayonnaise Kickoff Classic, I guess this would be. UNC been kind of disappointing, to be frank. Since the first year Mac Brown was there, in Sam Howell's freshman year, they exceeded expectations. And a lot of people in 2019, a lot of people thought they would win like 2-3 games. Came out, upset the Gamecocks in week 1 in a game Will Muschamp pissed away. And, rallied to have like a 500 season. But the expectations have been through the roof since then. They've, quite frankly, failed to live up to them. Their offense has continued to be lights out with the introduction of quarterback Drake May, really good player who's a Heisman Trophy candidate. Their defense has been absolutely abysmal. I look at North Carolina and I look at Tennessee, And I see much the same team. Tennessee defensively, maybe a little better than North Carolina, but you could swap one for the other and really not be able to tell much of a difference. UNC last year, this team made it to the ACC championship game, took on Clemson. They were absolutely just outclassed and embarrassed by a backup quarterback for Clemson in Cade Klubnik, and that's what he was at the time, as a backup quarterback. He'll now be their starting quarterback. I think they're actually a favorite over the Gamecocks, and I'm fine with that. Playing as the underdog doesn't bother me. I kind of look at this game, not so much as like the 2019 game against UNC in Charlotte. For me, for some reason, this kind of reminds me a little bit of the 2017 game in Charlotte. South Carolina opened up the season with against NC State, where South Carolina was an underdog against a pretty talented NC State team, and South Carolina rode an opening kickoff touchdown return by Debo Samuel to a 35-28 victory. Kind of look at this one much the same. I think that both these teams are going to put a lot of points on the board. I could see this game getting up into the 80s between the two of them. And it's definitely going to be a tough test, and will definitely be a nice feather in South Carolina's cap if they can come away from this one with a win. Come away with a loss, is all lost for the season? No, it's not. It's not a conference game, but that's definitely a tone setter early, and you don't get a chance like you've had the past few years, kind of a warm-up game. 2021, opening up with Eastern Illinois. 2022, you opened up with Georgia State. You come right from fall practice right into the frying pan against what will be a top 25 team. Next week at home, take it on Furman, FCS team. Furman, 10-3 last year, lost in the second round of the FCS playoffs in kind of a shootout against Incarnate Word. Have no idea how many players are back, how many players left from that team, but as far as FCS teams go, it'll be a stiffer challenge than some could be. It's not like playing a Charleston Southern or like playing a South Carolina State. Furman will come ready to play in that game. I don't think South Carolina is going to be beating them by 60 points. If they could, it'd be great. I don't see that happening, though. Next week, you're on the road at Georgia. And as far as SEC openers go, they don't get any tougher. You're taking on the team who has clearly been the best in the country the past 2 years. They've won it. They've won it all. And say what you want to about Ohio State with the close call in the playoffs. Georgia has done what they've had to do to win the national championship and go undefeated 2 years in a row. That's it's a small dynasty right now, and could turn into an even larger dynasty down the road. A team the past few years that has far and away been the best in the SEC East. Far and away. Better than anybody else. Tough spot to play in. South Carolina will definitely be a significant underdog in this game. The way you play here is going to determine a lot about the way the rest of the season, especially the next few games, turns out. You can't afford to go down there and not show up like you did last year. You didn't show up in that game last year, and it took until really late in the season to kind of get right. South Carolina needs to go down there and play well. They need to. This is a big game for recruiting purposes. It's just a big game all the way around. And South Carolina is going to have to go down there, play well, maybe lead for a little bit in this game. And it's a game Georgia's going to be a significant favorite in. I'll go on ahead and say I don't expect South Carolina to win. South Carolina has won there in the past when Georgia had a really good team. That team was flawed a little bit. The one in 2023, I don't see a lot of flaws on. So Take that one with a grain of salt, if you will. Next week at home against Mississippi State, you got a new head coach there, and Zach Arnett taking over for the passed away Mike Leach. And they're totally going to be redoing the offense here. And this is probably a really good point to get Mississippi State at. They open up their SEC schedule, I think, either against LSU or Alabama. It's a tough game because I remember looking at it. I just can't remember who they play. This will be a game where South Carolina should be a favorite, and they should win. This is the kind of game you can't afford to lose. This is one of those little swing games that's going to determine a lot about the way things pan out as we continue forward. Next week on the road at Tennessee. What else can I say about this one that hasn't been said already? Tennessee was ranked, what were you ranked, number 3, 4 in the country last year when they came to Williams-Brice Stadium as like a 21, 22-point favorite. I gave South Carolina no chance in this game. I will go on ahead and say it. I had given up my fandom the week before when South Carolina lost like 37-6, 38-6 on the road at Florida. And I'll go on ahead and admit that to anyone who wants to debate me on it. I'll tell you this. I gave up my fandom and I said that I will not be coming back until changes are made. It was clear in the first half against Tennessee that changes had been made. I reserve the right as a fan to do that if I wish. I have been pulling for this team for over 40 years, and you're not going to tell me how I can fan and how I'm not going to fan. I will say this. There's not anyone who is a dedicated and extremely passionate fan of a particular team, whether it be Gamecocks, whether it be Clemson, Tennessee, frickin' Rice, Georgia, the Philadelphia fucking Eagles, I don't care who it is, that has not done the same exact thing that I did on that fateful Saturday evening. I just get kind of victimized for it because I run a YouTube channel. That's fine. I'm a grown-ass man. I take my grown-ass medicine. Tennessee, this game on the road, I expect Tennessee to be a team that's going to put up a lot of points again this year. I don't see a lot of changes there. I see another team that's going to put up a lot of points, maybe give up a few points, but they're going to win a lot of ball games, and they're going to be a tough out. This is a pretty tough game after this quote-unquote swing game at home against Mississippi State. Tennessee thinks they're putting 70 points up on South Carolina this year. Reason why? They can't stand the fact that we beat them this past season. They can't stand it. They're up in arms about it. I don't see it happening. Do I think South Carolina wins this game? I don't know. Do I think we lose it? There's a very good chance that we may. I'm not going to predict it either way right now, but I can guarantee you this. You're not putting 70 points up. And number two, you're going to get South Carolina's best shot. You're going to get punched in the mouth if you do, in fact, win that ball game. Should be a good one in Knoxville. It's a budding rivalry. The next week, you're off, and that's a good spot to be off in. 3 tough SEC games in a row. Got an off week. Home game against the Florida Gators. A team South Carolina needs to beat. Last year's game against Florida was absolutely... It ranked top 5 in worst performances that I've seen from a South Carolina team from, I'm talking 40 years ago until now. Just, judging where Florida was versus where we were at, that was... it was really bad. South Carolina lost 38-6, I believe it was. No offensive touchdowns in that game. The touchdown we did score was on a fake punt, I think, or a fake field goal. I'm not sure right now. I've tried to block that one from my memory. Florida's a team that they're trending downward as far as wins and losses and culture, it would seem. They're kind of treading water as far as recruiting, because if you look at the recruiting rankings, they're in the top 15. I think that most SEC people feel like to be relevant, you have to be in the top 5. that's, you know, dependent on what kind of a developer of talent your coaching staff is. I think that's where the problem is. It doesn't look like Billy Napier and his staff are real good developers of talent. Lost a lot of people to the transfer portal. A game South Carolina needs to win. The next week on the road at Mizzou, another game. South Carolina really needs to win this game. They need to get the monkey off their back. They have a 4-game losing streak to Mizzou. Last win coming back in 2018. And if you'll listen to the Mizzou fans or the Clemson fans, because they got to take the side of whatever, South Carolina only won that game because it rained a lot. Well, guess what? It rained a lot for Mizzou too. The headsets went out. They didn't know what the fucking play clock was. Nobody knew what the score of the game was. Whatever. South Carolina won the game 38-35. But since then have been generally underwhelming against Mizzou. Lost road games there since Mizzou's been in the conference in 2015 and in 2019 and 2021. Have victories at Mizzou in 2013 against a top 3 team, and then in 2017. It's very important South Carolina go on the road and get this win. I can't tell you how important it is that they snap the streak. Mizzou's another team that tends to get pigeonholed every year. They're kind of like Syracuse over in the ACC. People tend to pigeonhole Syracuse into last place or next to last place in the ACC for no reason at all, without doing any research. People tend to do the same thing with Mizzou. They pigeonhole them into next to last place against besides Vanderbilt, above them, without really knowing what's going on. Got a good transfer quarterback in from Miami and Jake Garcia. I think a guy that was never really developed there, never really got a whole lot of chance to do anything. And then a really, really highly touted freshman who was on campus last year in Sam Horn. Mizzou fans are really chomping at the bit to see this guy play. They did lose they're one of the better receivers in the SEC to the transfer portal in names just escaped me for some reason there. I'll think of it in a second. Lost him to Georgia. Dominic Blaylock? He already was on the Georgia team. Whatever. They lost in the transfer portal. Dominic Lovett to the transfer portal goes to UGA. Since Eli Drinkowitz has been at Mizzou, they've had some pretty good recruiting classes and some good recruits, as evidence in the 2022 class. Big time get for them in and here we go again. Carolina jackpot drawing down blank right here when we're Luther Burden, when we're in the middle of a video. Wide receiver, all everything athlete from the Kansas City, Missouri area. You know, really didn't do a whole heck of a lot last year. The recruiting and the has not matched up very well with the development or the results on the field for Mizzou. But they do have to replace quarterback. That's going to be number one on their list. Big game for South Carolina to go on the road and get a victory here. On the road at Texas A&M the next week. Doesn't get any easier. I don't care what you want to say about Texas A&M's 2022 campaign. It was an outlier as far as the record goes. Texas A&M has failed to live up to expectations every year that Jimbo Fisher was there, except for, you might want to say, the 2020 COVID year, that they kind of exceeded expectations. This is a make-or-break year for them. I do expect them to be improved. Bobby Petrino comes out there, takes over as offensive coordinator. We're going to see how this marriage works out. But both of these guys have, I think, really big egos. We know Jimbo Fisher is really stubborn. I don't know about that aspect of Bobby Petrino, but we definitely know he's an attention seeker. And we also know he's a really good offensive mind, or at least he was 10, 12 years ago. What he is in 2023 remains to be seen. Yes, I know he won and put a lot of points up at Missouri State as the head coach there. This is totally different ball of wax in Missouri State. On the road at A&M, however, a very tough place to play. South Carolina's never won here, obviously not. They only have beaten A&M one time, that being last year, in a game that, in my opinion, South Carolina really didn't play particularly well, at least for three quarters. Returned the opening kickoff for a touchdown. Got up, I believe, was it 28-0, 24-0? Slowly let Texas A&M creep back into the ball game. They won it 31-21-ish, something. I don't have that right in front of me. But they kind of got ahead of them, and instead of putting their foot on their neck and just cracking it off, they let them get back into the ball game. That was concerning. I mean, if you want to look at that one from a glass half empty perspective, it was more concerning than it was encouraging, and kind of foreshadowed that performance against Florida. So this is an important game for South Carolina as well. Once again, A&M, I don't think are going to be world beaters. I don't think they're going to contend for the SEC. As some folks do, I have some people putting them in the top 10. As some people putting them as SEC championship game contender. What are you doing? No. If they get back to 8-4, 9-3, that would be a huge success for them under first-year offensive coordinator. Very talented team, very tough at home, especially for South Carolina. That's a big game. Next week, you're at home against Jacksonville State. The other Gamecocks, Jack State, 9-2 last year. Was their last year in FCS. They're transferring over to an FBS program. They're going to be in Conference USA. Once again, this is a very Furman-type game to me. You can look at these lower classification teams and say, well, you should beat that team by 60 just because of the name on their jersey. I think a lot of people kind of tend to look at those things and lump it that way. These lower classification teams, there's teams there that are on the Alabama level for that particular classification, and also some on the Vandy level for that same classification. Jacksonville State is pretty decent. That will be a tough test for South Carolina. Don't stub your toe. Next week, they're at home once again. The last four games of the season are at home. Against Vanderbilt, South Carolina's kind of owned Vanderbilt, which, I mean, that's, you know, like, when you say that, it's laughable, I guess, but no other team in the SEC East has gone undefeated against Vandy for as long as South Carolina has. Have not lost to this team since 2008. Went on the road last year as only a 7.5-point favorite and beat the Commodores handily. Should have beaten them by more than what they did. But Vanderbilt won 2 SEC games last year. Finished up 5-7. They have a manageable non-con schedule this year. Vanderbilt, if they pull off a couple more upsets like they did last year against Kentucky and Florida, could be a bowl team. You know, they may have to pull off one more upset, but it's not totally unfathomable to think that could happen. James Franklin led Vanderbilt to multiple bowls. Derek Mason led Vanderbilt to several bowl games. And eventually that streak against Vanderbilt is going to end for South Carolina. I don't think it ends in Columbia. I don't think it'll end next year. But you can never go into that game with your pants dragging. Next game is at home against Kentucky in the next to last game of the season, last conference game. Last game as a member of the SEC East for South Carolina, as that will be dissipated after 2023. Kentucky had a down season last year. They lost to Vanderbilt, lost to South Carolina as well. South Carolina kind of broke a little losing streak against them. I look for them to be a little bit improved this year, and I think that Kentucky makes my list of overachievers for 2023. They're bringing back Liam Cohen, the guy who was offensive coordinator in 2021, who Mark Stoops had brought over from the NFL, and kind of engineered Will Levis and that crew to have a pretty good offensive output and a pretty good season. Last year, he departed, went back to the NFL, brings in Rich Scangarello as the offensive coordinator. That was a damn unmitigated disaster. And he was let go. Cohen comes back. They bring in Devin Leary, transfer portal quarterback from North Carolina State. Kentucky could be formidable again in 2023. This is the game before Clemson. You're coming off of a couple of games that you should win. So this is a big game for South Carolina at home in the next to last game of the season. We know how well they performed last year in the next to last game of the season at home. Looking for a repeat performance in 2023. And, of course, the last game of the season at home against Clemson. Look, this is another team, much like Tennessee, is going to be gunning for South Carolina. We've talked a lot of smack since beating them. However, losers of 8 of the last 9 against Clemson since the 5-game winning streak in a row. They're going to be a top 10 team in 2023, if not top 5. I respect what Garrett Riley has done as an offensive coordinator at Texas Christian, TCU, and at SMU. I respect what he did as a running backs coach at East Carolina. Oof, that Pirates running game, man. And at Kansas, wow, those 1.1 wins they were averaging a season. He's got more talent. He's got more paints and more paintbrushes for the canvas at Clemson. He's also got a more seasoned head coach to work under in Dabo Swinney. This is going to be interesting. Given how things map out over the season, given how their season goes, Clemson has one particularly tough game at home, one particularly tough game on the road before this. I would expect them to come into the game as a favorite, but you never know. This is why I don't do preview and prediction videos in April. But recruiting-wise, South Carolina has the momentum in the state of South Carolina. Now, the Clemson man can sit here and argue with you all day long and tell you that they ain't want any of these kids from South Carolina. South Carolina football, high school-wise, is down right now. Blah, 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 blah. They'll have 5 million excuses why they don't want these players. That's why they didn't sign with them. Well, the fact of the matter is your hat was on the table, right? Your hat was on the table when the Cam Pringle kid from the lower part of the state chose South Carolina. Your hat was on the table when Blake Franks, the offensive tackle from Greenville High, chose South Carolina. Tater. So, go put that in your fat pipe and smoke it. South Carolina is improving on the recruiting trail, improving everywhere. And you just can't stand it. And, I wouldn't be able to either if I was a Clemson fan, to be honest with you. A lot of people say, well, we want this rivalry to be competitive. That's why I want South Carolina to be good, because I want to see a good competitive game. It's best when both of them is ranked and all this. Me? Hell no. I hope Clemson comes in the damn game 0-11, and I hope that 11 is by a lot. I know they're not going to lose them all, but that's the way I feel about the situation. I'm not going to pull for you in any games. I'm certainly not going to hope you come in with a good record so that this thing means a lot for the state. I'm sorry, I just don't. I think that any true fan that's embroiled in these things, and any true fan that really embraces the rivalries, feels the same way. They don't want to see you win a game. I hope you lose in freaking pocket pool next week. I don't want to see you win 10 games and coming in there 10-1 or something. Oh, well, it's going to be a competitive game because they're good. So that rounds out the season. Just some tidbits about Gamecock football. I saw they had a scrimmage. I guess this is their last scrimmage of the spring on Tuesday morning. Shane Beamer was impressed with the defense. It said, the simulations they ran anyway, not simulations, the drills they ran or series, whatever you want to call it. They were, like 5 out of the first 6 were 3 and outs for the defense. And South Carolina's lost some players defensively, got some coming back. So that's encouraging. Said that the defense was really good at stopping the run, but then he also, in the same breath, said that the running game was not very good on Tuesday. So that's concerning to me. We bring back Juju McDowell. South Carolina's also got Dak Joyner, I think, working in the backfield at running back sometime, guy that's been around since 2018. And we also bring in the transfer, Mario Anderson Jr. from Newberry College, a guy who's rushed for like 3,000 yards at the Division II level. And to hear that the running back room is not up to his liking is concerning, to say the least. And then when he says the defense did a good job at stopping the run, was that because they really did a good job at stopping the run, or is it more that the run stopped themselves? I don't know. But that's something that's concerning, and I look for it to unfold more going into the summer. Hopefully South Carolina is able to land someone out of the transfer portal to help them at the running back position. I don't know exactly who there is in the transfer portal at running back, and there could be someone in the transfer portal at running back that's not in the transfer portal yet. That could happen after spring for some other team when someone thinks, hey, I ain't going to get my shot here, and they decide to move on. And then, the Tennessee fans. Now, I watched a video today by Sports. I know this video has gotten very long, and I apologize, but I've got some points here to make. Sports Talk Jay talking about Tennessee facing the having to kind of pay the piper, I guess, for the whole Jeremy Pruitt McDonald bag garbage that's happened. And, the vast majority of Tennessee fans feel like they shouldn't have to answer the NCAA because they have already self-imposed things upon themselves. We reduced our scholarships. We did this, we did that. It doesn't matter. You still should be punished for having a coach on your payroll, having a coaching staff on your payroll, having a coaching staff, a coach's wife on your payroll, who was stuffing McDonald's bags with money and handing it out to recruits at a time when it was illegal to do so. There was no NIL at the time. So Tennessee should have to pay for those transgressions. And they knew it was going on. You can't tell me that they didn't know it was going on. And they were still losing. And they fired him. They said, well, we fired him. We fired everybody that was involved. Yeah, you fired him, you damn fuck sticks, because he was a damn terrible head coach. That's why you fired him. Give me that crap. And here's the thing. When you're a kid and you screwed up, brought home a bad report card, you got caught stealing something. You did God knows what to get in trouble. Would you have rather faced an ass whooping from your dad, or would you rather have self-imposed your own ass whooping? Answer that down in the comment section below. I'll see you guys later on. I appreciate it. Hit this with a thumbs up if you enjoyed it. Please consider subscribing to the Carolina Jackpot channel. College football content here all year long. And make sure you check out our live shows. I'll see y'all later. Appreciate it. Peace. I'm out of here. Go Gamecocks. Go Coach Beamer. And go Spencer Rattler. Woo!